Have you ever felt like you're giving your absolute best, but no one in your career sees you? Well, I'm going to tell you the story of how an invisible intern, who barely had any professional recognition, landed a promotion that even her manager didn't dare to dream of, and in less than 2 minutes. Sounds like a paradox? That's because the key wasn't in speaking louder, but in knowing how to listen, or rather, sign, in silence. Many people believe that career success depends on sucking up to the leadership or having the best degree, and that's where the controversy lies. The truth is that what truly sets you apart is empathy and a skill the corporate world ignores: genuine humanized communication and real accessibility. It's a counterintuitive statement, I know, but it works. Now, before we continue our story, subscribe to the channel now, turn on notifications, and follow our stories. Write in the comments where you are watching the video from and if you like the story. We will always bring more inspiring stories. Prepare to discover the strong belief that your most obscure and personal skills can be your greatest asset. Clara, our intern, only needed one deaf client to turn the tables. How did a simple hello in sign language make the CEO, Mr. Valenka, a leadership shark, take his eyes off the balance sheet and invest all his professional recognition in her? I'm going to show you how you can get a quick reward in your career by doing exactly what most people are afraid to do: being yourself, with your unique abilities. Don't miss it, because curiosity here is the bridge to knowledge that will change your perspective on professional recognition and accessibility. Many people believe that career success depends on sucking up to the leadership or having the best degree, and that's where the controversy lies. The truth is that what truly sets you apart is empathy and a skill the corporate world ignores: genuine humanized communication and real accessibility. It's a counterintuitive statement, I know, but it works. Prepare to discover the strong belief that your most obscure and personal skills can be your greatest asset. Clara, our intern, only needed one deaf client to turn the tables. How did a simple hello in sign language make the CEO, Mr. Valenka, a leadership shark, take his eyes off the balance sheet and invest all his professional recognition in her? The corporate career lobby, lined in cold marble and LED lights, was Clara the intern's daily stage. Although she was on the company's front line, she felt, so to speak, like an elegant and almost invisible piece of furniture, performing routine tasks that seemed to diminish her professional recognition. It was a place where words were always measured and humanized communication was lost in formality. Clara, despite being young, carried the weight of underestimation, something every early career professional has felt firsthand. She realized that her true skills, such as her capacity for observation and her natural empathy, went completely unnoticed in the cold, calculated rush of the environment. But, guess what? She believed that true company leadership should look beyond the resume. If you are in the daily grind and feel that your sparkle is being overshadowed, know that this is the phase where most of the growth happens, behind the scenes of the routine. It's the chance to develop that resilience they talk so much about in books, that ability to stay calm and empathetic amidst the predictable chaos. The essential thing is to understand that the knowledge you acquire there is your true differentiator, your long-term professional recognition. Look, humanized communication isn't just about using kind words, it's about the intention behind every interaction. In Clara's case, her career seemed stagnant, but her differentiator was about to be tested. Often, leadership ignores the power of the base, focused only on big results, losing sight of the unique talents that can leverage accessibility and internal culture. If you want to go beyond the basics, start mapping these blind spots. Clara begins to ask herself, what can I do that no one else here cares about, but that could solve a big problem? And speaking of problems few people see, Clara's day was about to be turned upside down with the arrival of a visitor. This was the kind of event that would expose the failure of that distant leadership and give the intern a chance to show a type of humanized communication that went far beyond the verbal. The calm of the lobby was abruptly broken by the arrival of an impressively built visitor, elegantly dressed, but who brought with him an energy of urgency and a slight sign of frustration. He tried to communicate with the main receptionist, who, let's face it, was more worried about checking emails than exercising the humanized communication the moment demanded. Confusion began to hover in the air, like dense fog. The man gestured, pointed to his cell phone screen, but the panic in the eyes of the reception team revealed that the problem was set. It was an accessibility issue that no one there was prepared to handle. In these critical moments, the absence of empathy becomes glaring, and the professional recognition of whoever can resolve the unforeseen problem skyrockets. Clara, observing the scene from a respectful distance, felt that internal call, that what if that separates mere spectators from the protagonists of their own careers. Gosh, she saw the barrier rising between the visitor and the team, a wall that ignorance and lack of preparation built in a matter of seconds. And, to the misfortune of that distracted leadership, the meeting was marked as top priority. Look, the failure there was a break in the humanized communication process, a break that could cost the company dearly, something the great masters of storytelling would call an inciting incident. The intern, who barely had any professional recognition, was facing a practical test. It was the moment when the theory and practice of accessibility met chaotically. Clara paused and remembered something she had studied and brought that lesson into her life. When the system fails, your empathy is your best tool. Instead of hiding in your career routine, use the failure as a stage. So Clara focuses on the client, uses humanized communication, and creatively solves the problem, demonstrating a type of leadership that doesn't wait for orders. Clara, finally, also remembered a lesson she had learned at home about the importance of looking beyond the superficiality. It wasn't enough to have the accessibility logo on a flyer, it was necessary to live it. Her hitherto discreet career was about to receive an involuntary spotlight, all because of knowledge that seemed irrelevant to her role. Clara knew sign language, as she had a brother who was born unable to speak, and so Clara learned sign language, first to teach him and then to communicate daily. Clara loved her brother very much. Clara observes that the visitor, already almost resigned to waiting for an external interpreter, made one last gesture of apology, humanized communication failing in the face of protocol. But, suddenly, he saw something in Clara's eyes, a spark of empathy and recognition, that made him stop and focus on her. Clara took a step forward, which, in her head, sounded like thunder, but in reality was a calculated and calm movement, breaking the team's inertia. Without hesitating, and with the naturalness of someone talking to a longtime friend, she raised her hands and executed the sign for "Hello, can I help you?" The surprise and relief that instantly flooded the visitor's face were the very definition of humanized communication in its purest form. Clara's empathy not only resolved the impasse but transformed the atmosphere. Suddenly, the conversation flowed, not through sounds, but through precise gestures and clear facial expressions, opening a portal of accessibility that bureaucracy had tried to close. It was a demonstration of silent leadership, showing that knowledge is power, regardless of where you acquired it. Wow, seeing the visitor manage to express his name and the reason for the visit, which was crucial to his career, brought immense satisfaction to Clara. She wasn't just translating, she was building a bridge of humanized communication over the abyss of unpreparedness. This is the difference between being functional and being fundamental, having the empathy to go beyond your role as an intern. Clara understood that if she sought professional recognition, she understood that her extra skills like knowing sign language, Libras, were her superpower at that moment. Just like having a humanized view of people. In this case, a gentleman who needed help communicating. The conversation lasted less than 2 minutes, but the effect was thunderous. The visitor smiled, made a sign of thanks that Clara responded to with a sincere nod, and proceeded to his meeting with accessibility guaranteed. How could it be? The intern solved, in the blink of an eye, what the whole team couldn't. And, as Clara took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of relief, she had no idea that this small demonstration of empathy had been watched by a very important pair of eyes that, until then, considered her just an intern at the start of her career. Clara felt a shiver down her neck as soon as the deaf client moved away, not because of the adrenaline, but because of a strange instinct that made her look towards the restricted executive area. That's when she saw him, Mr. Valenka, the CEO, a mythical leadership figure, known for being as reserved as he was ruthless, closing his private office door with a calculated slowness. The boss was watching everything. The sudden fear of having broken some silent protocol swallowed the satisfaction of having guaranteed the client's accessibility. In corporate culture, individual performance is often viewed with suspicion, and Clara feared that her act of empathy, of humanized communication in Libras, would be interpreted as exhibitionism or, worse, a distraction. Her career seemed to be on the line for a good deed. It's that old story, professional recognition in rigid environments doesn't always reward initiative, but blind obedience. Clara began to replay the moment, fearing that her use of Libras would be seen as unprofessional or that she had somehow stolen the show. Her head was spinning. Would the next career meeting be a scolding for breaking formality? If you've ever felt like your leadership is watching your every move like a hawk, you understand the feeling. The paradox is that the most important actions for the client, those that demonstrate true humanized communication and accessibility, are the ones that most frequently break the internal status quo. But, pay attention, the courage to be who you are is always a factor of weight. Think of the story of David and Goliath. David's strength was not in his weapons, but in his unconventional approach. Likewise, Clara used an unexpected weapon, her knowledge of Libra's sign language, to solve a huge accessibility problem, risking her career because as an intern this was not her function. But she had empathy for people with special needs, in this case, a person who could not communicate normally through speech. Since she already had this feeling of empathy in her family, she took this unexpected action. This is the essence of true professional recognition, the calculated risk taken for empathy. Clara acted on instinct, and now all that remained was to stay calm. She knew she had done the right thing for the deaf client, but the leadership's assessment was still pending. Uncertainty loomed, and the phone on her desk seemed to vibrate menacingly. And wouldn't you know it, the phone rang, interrupting her spiral of anxiety. It was Mr. Valenka's executive secretary, with that impeccable, cold voice, asking Clara to come up. The moment of truth about her career, her humanized communication, and her professional recognition had arrived. The elevator ride up to the executive floor was the longest of Clara's career. Mr. Valenka's secretary, with her sphinx-like posture, only reinforced the silent terror. Interns were not called to that corporate Olympus to receive flowers. Clara mentally rehearsed excuses, humanized communication failing under the pressure of the fear of losing her professional recognition. It was the famous fear of the unknown that paralyzes us, the exact opposite of the leadership that is expected. Think of the analogy of diving. The water seems cold and dark from above, but it's only by diving in that we discover the new world. Clara was about to discover whether her act of empathy would be the beginning of a shipwreck or the opening of an ocean of accessibility and opportunities. Geez, this is the trap most people face on the path to success. The fear of reprimand stifles initiative. If you want professional recognition, you need to use your human instincts, even if it's bold. Have you ever made a bold decision in your career and then found yourself sweating cold waiting for the result? That's exactly the feeling. Upon entering the imposing room, Clara noticed that her boss, the CEO, was not behind the gigantic desk, the physical barrier that symbolizes the detachment of leadership. Instead, he was in a seating area, with a serious but not hostile expression, which somehow calmed her internal communication. Her career was in the hands of that man, and the silence was overwhelming. The tension was so great that Clara almost lost her train of thought. She was ready to apologize for any breach of protocol, ready to defend her empathy and her initiative to guarantee client accessibility. But the CEO made an unexpected move, breaking the ice in a way she would never have imagined. He looked at her directly, and, you know what? It wasn't a scolding look, but a deep assessment, as if he were measuring the caliber of that young intern who dared to have real humanized communication. Mr. Valenka, her boss, broke the silence not with a reprimand, but with a direct and penetrating observation, demonstrating a high level of leadership. You demonstrated the true humanized communication we seek in this company today, Clara. The intern's relief was physical. He revealed that the visitor was a deaf client crucial to a new accessibility project and that her empathy had saved the day. The CEO continued explaining that the senior team had failed by not immediately anticipating the need for help with communication through Libra's sign language, and that the intern's initiative and knowledge were, in fact, invaluable. It was a moment of clarity, in which Clara saw her professional recognition increase exponentially, not because of her degree, but because of the courageous action and the knowledge that seemed irrelevant in her career. Wow, this is the biggest lesson in leadership. A true leader not only corrects mistakes but also rewards initiative. The CEO confessed that he had been looking for months for a way to implement a robust accessibility program and humanized communication at all levels, but couldn't find the right person with the necessary empathy to lead the project. Clara, still in shock from the compliment, began to understand the transformative power of her empathy. She didn't just interact with the deaf client, she restored his dignity and the company's reputation, showing leadership that accessibility is, above all, a matter of humanized communication. The CEO then paused strategically, with a slight smile. Your action proved to me that professional recognition is not about tenure, but about the perfect match between skill and opportunity, the CEO said. And wouldn't you know it, he then made a clumsy sign in Libras for good job, confessing that he needed to learn more about this humanized communication. With the company's reputation and the deaf client's satisfaction guaranteed, the CEO asked the question that would forever change the course of Clara's career, opening a giant door on the executive floor. The CEO offered Clara a newly created position, focused on accessibility and humanized communication for clients and employees, immediately taking her out of routine internship. This change in her career proved that visionary leadership knows that the most valuable human capital resides in empathy and unique skills, not in the predetermined boxes of organizational charts. Imagine that. From the lobby as an intern to the executive floor, in the blink of an eye. Clara's ascent is the perfect example that professional recognition occurs when your preparation meets opportunity, and the X factor is the courage to act. She was promoted not despite her skill in Libras, but because of it, a powerful reminder that what you do with your heart, and that solves a real problem, will always be noticed by attentive leadership. This story of Clara shows that true leadership is a mirror. She did not hide when the deaf client needed empathy and accessibility, and, because of this, the company's leadership was obliged to review their own values. She became the catalyst for a culture in the company, which would finally adopt humanized communication as a rule, not an exception. In essence, Clara the invisible intern transformed her career because she was willing to go beyond what she was paid to do, using her empathy as currency, and her Libras as leverage. Her professional recognition became a beacon, illuminating the path that accessibility and humanized communication are the key to lasting success, and not just corporate slogans. Clara became the company's most valuable resource that day, elevating her career and showing the real meaning of leadership. After all, who would have thought that a simple greeting in Libras to the deaf client, observed by top leadership, would be the trigger to transform an intern's career into the company's greatest case of humanized communication? Subscribe to the channel now, turn on notifications, and follow our stories. Write in the comments where you are watching the video from and if you like the story. We will always bring more inspiring stories.